we need to adjust to climate change. We call it climate change adaptation. We can have it in different ways, but one of the most important way of having it is community-based adaptation. To do that, we have to have community-centered climate adaptation plans and projects. But while doing that, we need to consider quite a few things. Of course, we have to put people in the center of our planning and project designing. But what do we mean by that? We mean that we have to understand and appreciate communities' values, the knowledge they have, local knowledge, traditional knowledge, as well as indigenous knowledge, the beliefs they carry, the norms they practice, and of course the challenges they face. We shouldn't ignore the past experiences that they have gone through, they have gathered, and the way they have built or lost their trust in development practices and processes. We also need to appreciate the relationship the communities have with the internal and external systems. We also need to understand communities' perception of a particular problem. How do they define climate change? How do they define vulnerability, the risks, the hazards? What are their expectations in terms of solutions? How do they want to see the results at the end of an intervention? How do they define impacts, even the short-term outcomes? And finally, how do they define resilience itself? We need to balance all those expectations with the available resources. That's why prioritization of action is crucial. Thinking of the location, the people we need to target, the existing interventions, and learning from those interventions can help us to prioritize any intervention in a plan. Here, the trade-off is also key. What we are gaining in the long term for a larger group of people by compromising or sacrificing the short-term benefits of a small group of people. That's why consensus is vital. We need to build communities' absorptive capacity just to cope with a particular hazard in the short term. But that shouldn't stop us thinking long term to build adaptive capacity of those communities as well as we plan. And finally, we need to change the system. Systemic change is crucial. That's why we need to build their transformative capacity as well. Considering these pathways is so important when we try to prepare a community-centered climate plan as well as design climate change projects on the ground. Thank you.